Hi everyone, it's Ariana from the blog And Here We Are, and I am trying something new today. I'm going to try a weekly segment of answering your questions. So I write about a lot of different things. I write about expat life and travel, and I write about food and facing life's challenges and all sorts of things, and I get questions about all of those things. And a lot of times they're the same questions over and over again. So I thought maybe it'd be helpful if I started doing a weekly series where I answered your questions about anything really that you want to send me. I'm the kind of person that might not actually contact someone and ask my questions, so I know there are probably a lot of you out there who maybe haven't asked but are wondering about some things. So I would like to try to kind of reach out, and I think videos are a great way to connect with others. And sometimes it's nice to just talk instead of trying to sort of carefully word a post about something I'm thinking of. So I want to just kind of try to answer more questions by doing this every week. And today's question, the first one I got was, what is it like to live in England? Rosemary asked me, what do you love about it, and what are some things that drive you crazy? And I have a few things that I love and a few things that really do drive me crazy. So let's start with the positives. But before we do that, I just want to give you a little bit of background. I'm from Los Angeles, and I've also lived some other places. I spent 10 years living in the Philippines for part of my childhood. And I lived in Germany as well, and in Portland, Oregon. So I've lived quite a few places, and then now we've been living in England for almost 3 years. We live in Suffolk, in the southeast part of England, in a little town called Bury St. Edmunds. So, number one thing I love about living in England is nature, and more broadly than that, aesthetics. It is beautiful here, so beautiful. I mean, crazy beautiful. Every day my mind is just blown because on so many different scales, like starting with the architecture, there's so many beautiful homes and so many different styles of architecture, and it's always so interesting, and there's so many great architectural details that it's really just such a pleasure to walk into town and look at each of the buildings. On a larger scale, gardens. The English are amazing gardeners, and there are so many absolutely gorgeous gardens. And just walking my daughter in the morning to her ride share, it's been amazing. We get to see all these different gardens that we pass, and so many different things blooming, and it's awesome. Then go a little bit bigger, and in our city, there are so many green spaces that we can walk in. Even though it is a city, there are so many wild places kind of interwoven into the city, and I think people really take for granted that they get to walk through these beautiful green spaces away from traffic and things like that, and it's so peaceful, and there might be a creek running by and tons of bird songs, and that's just sort of part of living in a city even here. And it's something that I absolutely love. Then going even further outside the city limits, there's so many incredible wild spaces. There are woods and fields and all different kinds of places, heaths and tons of nature preserves. And all of them have been carefully preserved. They're wild, and yet they are also made so that it's easy for people to get in and enjoy them. And it's something that we just totally love, and it's something that we take advantage of as often as we can. And every day, when everyone gets home from work and school, we usually try to quickly make dinner, and since the days are longer, then we can go for an hour walk somewhere, and it's just incredible. And just taking drives anywhere is really beautiful. We don't spend much time on freeways as you would know them. I mean, it's like these country roads. Even if we want to go somewhere like the beach, we have to ride through all these really beautiful little villages, and it's just totally pretty. And it's not something I ever take for granted because it's just really wonderful. So that is something we really love. Another thing we love is that we can get so much fresh food. We are surrounded by farmland, and then a lot of the farms here actually have shops inside of them. So we can go to a farm and we can buy eggs from that farm, and we can buy meat that was raised on that farm. And we feel really good about that, supporting these small sustainable farms, and knowing where our food's coming from is pretty easy to do where we live, and that is something I also don't take for granted. As someone who tried to always, source food carefully living in the US, it was just harder to do. And here that's pretty easy, and I really, really love that part of living in England. And then the other big one is travel. It is easy to travel all over Europe from England, and that is so awesome. And it's something that just makes us so thankful to live here, and is one of the big things that keeps us here right now, is just that we can get in the car, we can drive about 2.5 hours, and then we can take either a ferry or a train with our car across to mainland Europe. And we've done that a whole bunch of times, and we're going to drive to Belgium in a couple of weeks to go to a friend's party, and we'll just, take our car all the way. We'll land in France and then drive up into Belgium, and I think our total travel time will be like less than 5 hours. So we love that, and we can also get plane tickets cheaply sometimes to lots of different places in Europe. So this is one of the main reasons why we live here, is just so that we will have the opportunity to see more of the world. This is a great kind of base to explore it from. So those are probably the top 3 things I really love about living in England. And just like any other place, there are some real challenges about living in England. And I always want to be honest, and I always want to be fair, and yet I always want to be positive. And so it's a little bit harder to talk about the challenges sometimes, because I'm afraid that I will sound just like super negative. So just know that, and I guess give me a little bit of grace if I sound a little too mad about some things. So the thing that is really hard for me is the social stuff. I've always lived in places that were relatively friendly, where like if you're walking down the street and you see someone, whether you know them or not, you might make eye contact, you might say hello, and if somebody said hello back to you, you would most certainly acknowledge them. And where, people kind of chat with each other, they make friends a little more easily, and I'm not talking about deep friendships, but I'm talking about like, if you go to the grocery store and you see the same checker over and over again, you will probably chat with them more and more each time, and maybe treat them like someone you know. That sort of thing is what I'm used to, and that sort of thing is what I have not experienced here. Socially, things have been really tricky, and if you've read my blog for a while, you will have read about some of the issues I have with this kind of thing. We've lived in the same house for almost 3 years, and we can walk down the street and see people who live on our street, and we can say hello and have them look at us like, why are you talking to me? Or, walking down the street, see someone coming and they cross over to the other side of the street because making eye contact is just too painful. Or they, it's like these space bubbles are huge and people do not want to have to sort of almost brush by somebody else. That's like the worst thing. I think a lot of Americans can get a sort of complex about this, because in their experience as Americans, maybe they're being rejected over and over and over again. I had one American who's living here who was telling me how every time she'd walk out her door, her neighbors would see her and literally run inside. So great was the fear of having to talk to her, that they would rather just turn around and walk back in the house. And this isn't after a negative thing has happened. It's like she moved there and they found out that they had a new neighbor and just did not want to face it. And we have some good neighbors. At the same time, we've had to introduce our neighbors to each other, even though they've been living on the same block for over 5 years. It's just completely different. And something that I've had to really understand and grapple with is that the culture that I'm living in is just different from mine, and it's not right or wrong at all. And they are not doing anything wrong. And in fact, I am the deviant here. I am the one walking around with a big old smile on my face, trying to make eye contact with people I don't know, saying hello, kind of making people uncomfortable pretty much. And I imagine that sometimes my behavior could be seen as inappropriate for, whatever reason, that I shouldn't be like trying to engage with everybody around me. And in fact, I have definitely toned down the way that I interact with other people. I am much more likely to not try to make eye contact, to give people more space when I'm passing them on the sidewalk, kind of not push things, because at one point I just realized that I was the one with the problem, not them. So that doesn't mean that it's not hard, though. It's really hard, actually, to have lived here for 3 years and to have only a handful of friends and to have people that anywhere else I'd lived, I would have a certain level of comfort with and rapport because we'd been seeing each other off and on in passing for months and months. To just not have that, that's something that I regret, I guess. It's something that I wish was different, and yet something that I'm just having to accept. That said, I can accept it, but it makes me think, how long am I willing to live this way? Like, how long am I going to have this sort of side of me? I don't want to be dramatic and say slowly die, but just to be suppressing my own natural friendliness and to being okay with not really connecting with the people around me in the way that I'm used to. How long am I okay with that? And this is something that has definitely made me want to move, for sure. I definitely would like to move because of this, because as time goes on, you're hoping that you're putting down some roots and building community wherever you are. And at 3 years in, we do have some community. We have put down some roots, but not nearly enough for me. And so I kind of feel like, okay, time to move on and find another place that is going to jive a little bit more with me culturally. And Jeff and Amelia feel the same way. I'm actually the introvert in the family, and I love spending tons of time by myself, and that has been a huge asset during our time in England, but it's also not been enough. Me being introverted has not been enough for me to accept this sort of social dynamic. And Amelia goes to school, so that's great. So she has all of her classmates there, and she sort of fits in naturally. And then Jeff goes to work, and he has his coworkers, and he works with American families, so he does not have that sort of experience on a daily basis. But it's me who, that I don't really have the other sort of social outlets. So I've started working in town here now, and I think that was a really good move, and I think it's probably one I should have made early on. And that's one piece of advice I could give you if you're moving to England, is go get a job, even if it's, something really basic. Minimum wage, whatever, just to get out there every day and to start meeting some people so you don't become too isolated. So that's the number one challenge living here in England. Another challenge is those stereotypes about English food. Most of them are true. Things are improving, but I'm always disappointed when we go out to eat. I'm rarely sort of impressed or surprised, like, oh my gosh, this is really good. I'm so glad I paid for this, because food's really expensive. And so that's kind of another one. And I guess both of these challenges, the positive side of them is with the social isolation, you get to really bond with your immediate family, whoever's with you. You learn to really, really enjoy each other's company, and you are more interdependent, and our family is really close knit, and I think partly just because we don't have our own social circles really going on, we're not all kind of splitting off to do our various things with different people. We always spend all of our time together on the weekends and in the evenings, and we really enjoy each other's company, and that's great. And I think that's a gift, because I think today a lot of people you know, every family member has all these different things that they have going on, and they don't actually get to spend so much time just together as a family alone. So that's one positive. And then with the food thing, we don't go out to eat anymore, pretty much at all. Maybe we'll go to London like every couple of months, or we'll travel, and that's our chance to eat out. But we cook. We cook a lot, and I always enjoyed cooking, but it's made us sort of expand the things that we cook. You know, we're making our own wine and curing meats and just trying all sorts of new stuff. And my husband's gotten a lot more into cooking, and we just really enjoy our own food at home all the time now. And we have to sort of make our own parties. We can't just go out to dinner. If we want to have a fun, easy evening, we have to sort of make our own fun, make our own food to go with it. And that's not bad at all. That's been a good thing for us. So those are kind of my top best things and worst things about living in England as far as I've experienced it. I'd love to hear from you if you live in England, what you think. And then, of course, if you have any questions for me, I'd like you to send them to me. You can just send an email to andhereweare.net@gmail.com. And in the subject line, put Q&A, and then I'll know it's a question you want me to answer for you. And hopefully I can answer some of your questions. So thank you so much for watching, and I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. Bye.